Good evening and welcome to the Poetry of Justice show with Jackie Ray Phillips on yikesradio.com. Now, here at the Poetry of Justice show, what we do is we select topics that spark the interest and awareness of social diversity, ranging from arts, entertainment, and social justice at large, leaving our listeners thinking and saying, yikes!
yikesradio.com.
All right. Thank you, Dante. Now, those are the sultry sounds of my mentor, the Mr. Kevin Nash. And Mr. Kevin Nash is the owner of this amazing proprietorship here at Accelerated Radio. And I always give him love and honor and respect, because if it wasn't for his platform and what he loves to do, I wouldn't be able to come here tonight and do what I so love to do. And so I have some powerful, powerful people that assist with this show. And I start off to the benefactor, my sister, Miss Lori G, also known as Miss Lori Ray Fisher. And Lori is the president of Gingy Productions and Entertainment Company, but an executive producer of the Poetry of Justice show and so much more. So I always give the very first intro, love and respect to Miss Lori Ray Fisher. And then we've also got some new sponsorship for the Poetry of Justice show. I'd like to give a shout out to the G. Lou Show. And so this platform, you got Wednesday nights and you've got Sunday nights and you've got Saturday. You've got this guy all over the place. So what you want to do is just Google the guy. You can catch him on YouTube, IG, G. Lou, G-L-E-W. And then I have to give respect and partnership to G Babies Catering, everybody. So it's summertime. It's time to splash and have a good time. So you want to contact G Babies Catering. So you can do that here through the Poetry of Justice show. And again, you can also catch them on Instagram, GBABBIES.catering. So you definitely want to give them a take a look see. And we also give love and respect to WMPJ Steelworks and my new favorite, APS Muscle Cars. So tell you a little bit about APS Muscle Cars, guy. There's a expansion that just occurred. So he did moved on over to Signal Hill, California. And what we have going on there is a vehicle storage facility, as well as vehicle sales. We do custom built cars for you or whatever you can think of. So if you got some big boy or girl toys that you need to be safely stored away, this is the guy you want to check out. His name is Memo, M-E-M-O, and that is with A, P is in Paul, S is in Sam, musclecars.com. So you want to go on ahead and check that out, guys. Woohoo! So we've got a lot going on. I know that's a mouthful in the introduction, but that's a good thing, you guys. It just means we're growing and can't nobody stop us. So I want to give respect tonight to our panelists, everybody. I'm going to be introducing a new face to our show. I know we've been blessed to have a great deal of commentary, both here in Facebook, hello Patrick, as well as our Zoom platform that my amazing executive producer, Lori Ray Fisher, works so diligently on to make sure that we are providing the best that we can. And Lori's going to get me if I don't tell everybody to check out our YouTube channel, guys. We're growing. So you want to check out the YouTube. The YouTube is the POJ show with Jackie Ray. Simple enough, right? So you want to check that out. Put in any of those derivatives, you can get to us. So we want to do that for us. And but tonight I don't know. Eric, how do you think we want to do this? Did you want me to introduce the panelists, Eric, or I can introduce you and you do so? I know. I just want to give a great honor, respect to Mr. Zach Stewart, because he's new with us tonight. So.
Yeah, I would rather you do what you do. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. I know. Okay. So I'm doing me, guys. So I'm going to give a shout out to my brother-in-law, Mr. Eric G. Fisher. And Mr. Eric G. Fisher has been an amazing support system because he's on the triple back end support with Lori G. But in particular, with regard to our show, this show, and future shows and shows past, what Eric has brought to us is a very strong Black male voice to our show on a consistent basis, discussing an array of topics that range from academia to financial affairs, and to now something that is really new for a brotherhood on our show, something so intense. Because usually I get Eric in here for about the money, and because Eric is a good money manager, he's got his MBA. So, but I'm saying it's usually something like that. So when it was time for a brotherhood to come back around this time, it's exciting for me as a host to be able to bring such a powerful show. And I am going to be much more active, but I also give the floor to where the floor is due, because the hard part came from the hard work of these amazing men. Again, starting with my brother-in-law, Mr. Eric G. Fisher, who I honor and respect. So, and of course, I love you, E. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, Eric. And then I'm also going to give a shout out to and welcome to the panel. Returning is Mr. Jerome Rucker. And you can also catch Mr. Jerome Rucker on Facebook for sure. Eric G. Fisher's also on Facebook. These men, and we'll get more handles going later, but just in case you guys want to be switching back and forth, you can know what we have going on. And so Jerome is really big in education, social issues, religious affairs, family unity. I've been blessed to have Jerome with us. I believe this is Jerome's third or fourth time returning to the show, so it's definitely a brotherhood. And the reason why it's so dynamic for Lori and I here at the Poetry of Justice show is because our founding premise was that on the a lot of Black female power, a lot of Black female power. So that was the founding structure of our show. But to be able to be blessed to have the support of really strong Black men to come through the show has really brought a large balance, if you will. So I'm really honored to have these gentlemen with us tonight. So thank you, Jerome. And then I have back to the show tonight is Mr. Joel Simmons, and he is a community activist and a parent and so many other things. But we'll get Joel. I don't think he's joined us quite yet. There was some little technical difficulties that we had going on. And then, most importantly, introducing and who I'm going to allow to take the floor as I shut my big mouth up is going to be Mr. Zach Stewart to the show. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And how are you tonight, Mr. Stewart? Uh-oh. There you go.
Well. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here with you, Jackie Ray, and the rest of the panel. Looking forward to some good discussion, dialogue.
Yes. So what we were talking about is the conversations have started. So now what do we do? But Eric Fisher is burning on my spirit right now that we've opened up the show talking about the most recent situations in Atlanta. We're going to be looking at particularly, well, we thought we were going to be looking at something very particular. And then this morning, as soon as I woke up and after I did my praise and worship, I go and I see, oh my God, another Black person murdered. Actually, okay, maybe that's the wrong word, but shot and killed in Atlanta. And it just kind of like, whoo. So you and I have taken that one on today. So Eric, when you think about where our intentions were for today's show and what we really have to now tackle today, where are you with that, Mr. Fisher?
It's heartbreaking, to know that even after all of that has happened over the last 2-3 weeks, that they still believe it's okay.
Right.
I mean, like you said, we woke up this morning to another one, and we shouldn't have anymore. And I think this is why you're seeing the outrage. You're seeing the people take to the streets. You're seeing that, everybody now is saying, hey, you know what? Enough is enough. Right. And this is why this is important to me. I think, the brothers that'll be here tonight, we've been talking about what do we do? So I think that, this is going to be a great opportunity for us to talk. And for all your listeners, if they're out there, while they're out there, please, we want you to chime in with your questions, offer some perspectives. We're going to put some challenges to you as individuals, because this is not just for 4 brothers here on the chat, but this is for all of brothers and sisters that are out there that can make a change and offer change here.
Guys, I'm just turn my light down a little bit, guys. Had a little bit of technical difficulty. so bear with me, okay? Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. We lost our Facebook, guys. My phone said it started to overheat a little bit, so I'm just going to get us the train rolling, Eric, and then we're going to go on ahead and move forward. Okay, guys, I think I got a little bit of action. Hold on. Like they say, Lord, bingo, I got action. I think we got action. I think we got action. Can we get back in there, guys? Let's see if we can get back in there. Let's see if it's going to let us back. Anyway, we'll get in there. All right, guys, we're getting it going. So, okay, so protesters, Eric, I'm going to take this one here. Atlanta police chief steps down. What do you think about that?
Needed.
Needed?
It
right?
Is. It is.
What about you, Zach?
Well, it's just complete reform is required. And I mean, you talk with officers and they even recognize that massive reform is needed.
Yeah. It's too much, guys. It's time.
Yeah, well, you know, it goes back to, that environment has been there for 20 years. And if they haven't evolved with that leadership, it's time for new leadership. And I think,
exactly.
I think it's the right thing. I think change is needed. I think, this is what we're starting to see all across the country. People are calling for change. Because when you have leadership in there that keeps doing the same thing over and over and over, we obviously realize changes need to be made.
Right. So, Eric, this is what he said. The Atlanta police chief stepped down today, Saturday, hours after the death of a 27-year-old Black man who was shot by an officer while fleeing during a struggle at a Wendy's drive-thru late Friday night, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. So, Rashad Brooks had been asleep in his car in a Wendy's drive-thru, causing other customers to drive around the car. Okay, to drive around the car. So please forgive me, you guys. So causing the customers to have to drive around the car. The Bureau of Investigation said police were dispatched to the Wendy's around 10:30 p.m. and conducted a sobriety test on Brooks, who failed the test, according to the officials. During the arrest, the male subject receded and struggled ensued. The Bureau of Investigation said that the officer deployed a taser. Witnesses report that during the struggle, the male subject grabbed and was in possession of the taser. It has also been reported that the male subject was shot by an officer in the struggle over the taser. But the police chief stepping down today comes in the wake of this particular incident. So when we listen to those facts and what that report is, Eric, and that is from USA Today panelists,
right?
Where do you go with that? What are you thinking?
Well, again, we've already seen some of the videos, and I'm sure the other brothers on the line have seen the videos. Again, you show him with the taser, you show him running, but you shot the man with the taser. He didn't have a gun. He had a taser. And police are supposed to protect and serve, right? And they were shooting in oncoming traffic. There was traffic inside the drive-thru of the Wendy's. So you're shooting at an unarmed suspect with the taser into traffic that is actually sitting there waiting in the Wendy's drive-thru. So you put the community at risk. You killed an unmanned arm. He had a taser. He had their taser, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they could have tackled him. They could have did a lot of other things. Again, I'm not a police officer and we don't have one on the line, but I'm sure there's other tactics that could have been used other than pulling your weapon and discharging your weapon.
Wow.
But before we go further on this, and I see that Joel is joined, let me just read off a few names, because when I sit here and I'm listening to this one, there's all these names, and I want folks on the line to hear these names. Most definitely George Floyd, and this is no disrespect to him, but I want to make sure we pay homage to the others. We have Eric Garner, New York. We have 27 years old, Breonna Taylor, 26 years old, Louisville, Kentucky. Javier Ambler, 40 years old, Austin, Texas. Maurice Gordon, 28 years, New Jersey. You have Deion Johnson, 28 years of age, Arizona. You have Rashard Brooks, 27 years of age, Atlanta, Georgia. And then there was another one yesterday as well, was a brother in Oklahoma City who actually was running from the police. They tackled him. They even got the police on camera saying, the gentleman said, "I can't breathe." And he says, "I don't care."
Wow.
So I just want to just take, if we can just, oh, and I'm sorry, there's one
Oh,
other
that's
guy
right,
I
Eric.
want to make sure I recognize, and that's Antonio Villanueva, Valenzuela, I'm sorry, who was in New Mexico, who was choked. Again, this is just senseless. These are all these names of these people that have lost their lives at the hand of people that our taxpayer dollars go to pay for their services to support us. So if we could just take 30 seconds and honor those, I would greatly appreciate it.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
You know, so,
Whoa.
so that was why it was really important for me to be here tonight and to ask these young brothers on the call with me to be here, because this has got to be about action. Joe, I know you just came on. You know what? You want to just take a minute to say hello? And then Jerome will let you come in behind that.
Okay.
How you guys doing this evening?
All right.
Hey, Joe.
Considering the
Good
situation that's
evening.
been going on within the United States, this week has been rough. The past, let's say this month has been a rough month. I think everybody is fed up with the actions that's going on around here. You can only get pushed to so much of a point where it starts to be a breaking point. And unfortunately, with the tragic death of what happened with Mr. Floyd, it just came to that breaking point, and especially for it to be just blatantly on TV like that, and the actions of that cop with his knee on the man's neck, and the man is nowhere near resisting arrest. He's asking for mercy, please. When a man asks for his mama,
Yeah.
There's a point, and a lot of women felt connected to that because they look at it as that could have been my son, that could have been a daughter, a nephew, a brother, or something like that. So it kind of strikes home with the male and the female counterpart, but just the senseless act of that man getting killed like that. And I think it was rooted much more. I think that cop had a real big axe to grind with Mr. Floyd, considering their
Yeah.
history. But besides the point, I mean, that was wrong with what happened.
Yeah.
Period.
Totally agree.
And it could have, it could have been any one of us.
Yeah.
It could have been any one of us.
For sure. That's the scary part about it.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerome, let me have you just say a few words.
I think that it's obviously very sad, it's tragic, but this has been going on for a long time. So I think the main thing that we have to do is be very strategic in how we go about things, utilize all our resources, being relationships with people, as well as different organizations. I think it's definitely time for us to mobilize. And I also think we have to make sure we're not careful that we get into the whoever has the smoking gun gets the rage. So I think this has been a systemic problem. Systems have leaders. And I think we have to make sure that, while those police officers that we see on camera are in the wrong and should be prosecuted, I think we have to make sure we're very smart about make sure we go uphill. As we know, for years we have the saying that SHIT goes downhill, but we need to start going up that hill. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of the footwork is going to take the research. Who's in charge? Who are the district attorneys? Who are the people that are allowing these people to stay in positions so we don't just catch the Oliver North in the situation? We actually are getting the real people.
So true. So true.
Great point.
So, Jackie, one of the things I want to do is give your listeners some stats here, and they can actually go out and see this information as well. If they go out to mapping, MAPPING, police, POLICE, violence.org. On this site, it was actually very enlightening to see the information and the data that was out there. you know, not that most of the callers on that are on the show today probably already recognize this, but when you look at the data, you know, and data is data. You know, it usually doesn't lie that the number of police killings in the U.S. is disproportionately affects African Americans. We only make up 13% of the U.S. population. However, we are 2.5 times likely as white Americans to be killed by police. And not surprising, the three states that make up the largest killings of African Americans and blacks, California, Texas, and Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers I got was from 2013 to 2019. I just want to give some of those, and everybody can go out and take a look at this because you'll see it. California from 2013 to 2019 had 186 killings. Texas had 157. And New York had 71.
Wow.
But to give you a deeper breakdown, if you look at the African American population in California, 6.17%. Black victims make up 16%. When you look at Texas, you have 11.85% African American population. The black victims made up 22%.
Wow.
And then when you look at New York, you're looking at 15.8% African American population. The black victims make up 46%. Killed by police officers. So it just goes to tell you this is a pandemic that we've been dealing with, or an epidemic we've been dealing with.
Yeah, at this
for
point,
a very
epidemic.
long time. For a very long time. And this is not, our parents dealt with this as well. This is not something new. And I think, you know, just like George Floyd had that officer on his neck, we have got to keep our foot, our hand, our voice on their neck to make sure change comes around. Because normally when it happens, we speak about it for a little bit and then we fall back. They throw a little money at it, they appease us, we fall back. If you look at everything that's happened today, and I want you guys to jump in here as well, when you look at all the major corporations now are throwing money to the NAACP, these other organizations, you know what? Let's not let that go away. Yeah, they can help out by, you know, that funding can help, you know, us in trials and lawyer fees and whatever we need to do in order as policies and things need to be changed, but we cannot let up. You know what, we're on the 18th day, 19th day of protesting.
Wow.
They thought it was going to be 2 days and it goes away.
Right.
It's been 19 days. 19 days. I'm going to open it up to the other panelists to chime in here as well.
Let me say this, you can tell it made a pivotal impact because you have people over in Europe, you have people over in Australia, you have people over in Germany, they're protesting as well. So it really hit home with what happened. And, you know, like you said, Eric, to your point, a lot of these corporations have stepped up saying, we're going to commit this, we're going to commit that. Are they going to really stay committed, or is this something that look good at the moment to say, hey, we contributed to Black Lives Matter, or we contributed to this cause, or we contribute to this, we contribute to that. So nobody goes digging in on them and saying, hey, look, well, you guys didn't offer this, you guys didn't offer that. You know, we've been down this road so many times, and I'm a firm believer of show me, don't tell me, you know, because we're at the point where we need to be shown. You know, they can show us getting murdered, they can show us, you know, cop beating us up and killing us, whatever, but you know, how much of a commitment are we going to have from these corporations that's going to stay in there and make sure that everybody is getting fairly treated, all the minorities getting fairly treated, all the people of color in their corporations is being brought up the ladder, you know, given a good chance of opportunity to expand themselves. So, you know, that's the big question for me. How much are you committed to doing this? And it's just something to say, hey, you know, we're going to do this for a few months, and slowly but surely pull back from it because they'll probably forget about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an
What do you
excellent. That's an excellent point, because I've worked in corporate America for over 30 years, and so we see these on video out, you know, tragedies, and it's not a every day, even though it seems to be like every day that we've been seeing it in the last month here. But every day in corporate America, you've got African American minorities having to deal with the unlevel playing field. And when you look at it, that how do you really hurt the African American community if you're not giving them the jobs, if you're not giving them what they're deserving of? You know, so you're taking their hope from them. You're taking their a man's ability to take care of his family. So then we get into those perpetual situations where people feel that they just have no hope, and they're getting caught into bad situations. So this is, to me, it's not murder on television, it's not murder on video, but it's one of those, you know, constant. I mean, it's even worse because you're killing us, and it's a multitude of brothers that are feeling this. So yeah, I think, Joel, that was a great point as far as corporate America. They're trying to step up. We just went through, you see a lot of corporations now, they're with the COVID-19 having to do layoffs. Of course, when they did layoffs, who got laid off at a disproportionate level?
Right.
Minorities, African Americans. So, and I, like I said, it's obvious. And Eric, one other thing, though, when you were going through the stats, because I like numbers too, what were a couple of interesting points is mapping isn't, say, the government source. There was no government source that I could locate that tracked, say, victim death. That was interesting. Yet when you can go to, and you can go to the FBI, where they're tracking, obviously, officers killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the death for 2019 was maybe less than 50 for officers involved in it.
Right.
But when you looked at what mapping was showing, we were over like 1,100 individuals killed as a result of officers.
Officers, yeah.
And then that point of, they had a point of how many were unarmed. I mean, another point, I mean, I think you're in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And we, African Americans, people of color, make up over 50% of that.
That is so true. And I saw that from the data. It was just,
yeah.
It was disheartening to see that.
Yeah.
It was. Jerome, you were gonna say something there?
Yeah, and I think what also is something we can't lose sight of is the fact that the police officers we're catching on camera are just brazen enough to do it. So
Right.
what we're doing is we have an entire system in the school to prison pipeline that is actually setting kids up. So we're actually what to me is even more dangerous and deadly is we're having weaponized academics. Our kids are in toxic educational environment that spews them out and prepares them for a life of not achieving. So if kids are in a system where it's being discussed, stated, and pushed that racism is a public health crisis, they're experiencing that in schools first. So the police brutality is wrong. The murder of innocent Black people is wrong, or the incorrect procedure. But I dare to say that we have weaponized academics that our kids are suffering, and then we're having corporate lynchings that are happening to those of us in the professional worlds. So it's a three-headed monster. The one that we see and the one that makes us angry is the murder. But you can also silence Black people by making sure that they are in the toxic environments, and you can also silence them academically and professionally in the corporate world.
No, so true. And I think, you know what, Jerome, you brought up a really good point. And when you think about how this has evolved, I think this is, you know, one of the things I've been watching a lot of people speak on this topic over the last couple of weeks. And, you know, it's funny how now everybody was trying to say, well, what can I do that don't look like us, right? They're saying, hey, what can I do? What does this mean? Help me understand what this is. And it was interesting for this one person that says, take responsibility. Be able to admit that you're a racist. That's the first step. Once you can admit that I'm racist, now you might not be a bigot, but you could be a racist. You know, and you got to take that responsibility first. and you've got to acknowledge what we've been feeling. Just because you don't feel it doesn't mean that we don't feel it.
Doesn't exist, right?
Right. You know, Jackie, I think you talk about this on your show when you start talking about, you know, emotional behavior and behavioral issues. You've got to take that control to say, hey, I am wrong. I have a problem. And I think that's what you're starting to see. These folks are now saying, when they're out there saying Black Lives Matter, they're getting saying, you know what? Our ancestors did wrong. Our people have done wrong. Oh, my parent has done wrong. They're fessing up, and that's what you're starting to see. You're seeing a lot of these people that are saying that. I think, Jerome, you had the perfect story when we talked about when all this came out. You had a friend that said, hey, you know what? They called you on the phone the next day and say, you know what? No, I don't want to talk to you. Let me come up and see you face to face so I can understand, what does this mean? I don't know what to say. I'll let you chime in there a little bit.
So right, if we're talking about next steps and admitting you're racist and all those different things, I've come to the acceptance that we will not end racism. What we can do is end systemic racism. Now, what I believe, there's a lot of different ways we can go about it, not going too deep into solutions, but sometimes restitution is better than admissive guilt, because we have to be careful that we keep going so hard on admit it. Maybe they admit it, maybe they don't. But I want restitution. I want systemic change, and I want reparations. So I want to make sure we set the legal and political rules so that we can play the game equally. And also, I want to make sure that we have restitution, we have reparations for what is owed to us. So I don't care if you admit it or not. The facts don't lie. So let's just do business. Let's execute, and we'll, the feelings will take care of itself later. I want us to focus on that, because we may never get the relational or the emotional admittance, but admit guilt in the court of law through reparations, and I'm good.
Right.
You know,
I agree with you, Jerome. I'm sorry, Joe.
All right, I want to chime in on that. You know, about 2 years ago, I was reading an article in the Final Call newspaper. I just ran across it, and they had about maybe 6 or 7 different nationalities on there that received their reparations from the way the United States had treated them. The Japanese had received theirs from the World War II, when they rounded them all up and put them in camps.
Concentration camps.
Yeah, the Jewish received theirs from the Germans. The Indians, they give them parcels of land now that they've taken from them, when they came here. You had some of the Cambodians and some of the Vietnam people that got some type of form of reparation. And we were at the last of the list, and it said 400 plus years and still waiting on that 40 acre and a mule.
That's right.
To your point, Jerome, to set these standards and set these rules up in everything. But the thing is, are they going to play fair by this? Are they going to honor what we so deserve? Are they going to honor what we so need and say, hey, you know what? It's time to stop playing games here. It's time to stop messing around. Let's go ahead and even the playing field, which I know they won't do, but let's go ahead and even the playing field and just make this work. It's a big question mark hanging out there.
Hey, gentlemen, I'd like to share with you on the technical side. You've got 7 viewers in your Zoom room. You've got people from New York, Florida, Long Beach, Sacramento, all in the house supporting you. Miss Chris Fisher says that what's happening now, or what we saw across the country, is just a lynching. It's a public lynching.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a Mr. P. Jonathan, who is in Sacramento, that has a live question for you. Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
Okay. All right, Jonathan.
Hello?
You
Can you
there
hear me?
you go. Yes, we
Okay,
can.
All right, so Jonathan is my middle name. Jackie's probably like, who is P. Jonathan? Patrick Hunter, class of 85.
Hey, God, thank you for coming back. Oh, God bless
Right.
you.
Thank you to your sister, Laurie. I thought Laurie was younger than you, but she said she's a little older than us. But anyhow, So thank you for having a Zoom opportunity for me to join. Just a little bit about myself. I was born in Los Angeles, raised in Compton for my first 18 years. Those formidable years were met with the crack epidemic in the early 80s. I was thankful to have some really good people in my corner, including my single mom who actually went to school and worked full time, my grandfather who owned his own business, and my great grandmother who taught me to read and told me about college at 3 years old. So I was able to move up to Northern California as a part of affirmative action and went to UC Davis, struggled through there, and graduated, major in African American Studies and Sociology. I've been 27 years in Sacramento, working at Sacramento Job Corps, and now in the County of Sacramento as an employment advisor. My question, oh, and by the way, I'm a member of the one of the greatest fraternities in the world, Alpha Phi Alpha, 32 years. So anyhow, I see Zach over there. Zach, sorry. You okay with me, man? My couple of good friends are Kappas, and my brother name is Zach, so we good to go. Anyhow, my question to the panelists: one of the things that I'm seeing in a cycle, and definitely if you hit that 40-50 mark, is that it's a cycle of pathology. We get we get targeted, we protest, we riot, we sit down, and we go to these systemic institutional racist structures, and we say, hey, stop this. And they say, okay, we got a couple of programs, we're going to move a couple of people around, and they pacify us for a minute, and then we come back and we revisit this. And it is daily. When Zach said corporate America, I'm talking about civil service. It is so filled with nepotism, cronyism, favoritism, that everybody know each other, married to each other, and actually they make the rules, change the rules, move the bar, or move the goalposts when fit. We are highly qualified. We have been educated, but if anyone is aware of W.E.B. Du Bois, the talented 10th, and how that whole theory, if you split or if you educate the top 10% of our communities, we can uplift the other 90%. I figured out, hey, this racist country will say, hey, all I got to do is divide the top 10 smartest or the top 10 most educated people in that community, and then I got you. We are lost. So I'm gonna ask the panelists, anybody can chime in, if we were to dismantle any institution and build it back up, how would it look? So we know law enforcement is one of them. We have commerce, we have education. I heard about corporate America. We have sports. Who would dismantle it, or do we add to it? Or if you dismantled it, how would it look? And this is where I think doing something differently when we leave this earth, because I'm a little bit over 21. When we leave this earth, the best I can hope for is when you Google my name, you'll see a blueprint and you can pick up from there. So that's the best I can hope for, that when we leave this earth, that our goals and our philosophies just won't die with us, because there's so many buried bodies who had the same ideas that we're talking about today. Thank you. Sorry, I'm long-winded too. And I'm a single father of two. And again, my son, who is actually a junior right now at Cornell, when he leaves his house in Sacramento, I'm like giving him all these rules and all these safety techniques that my mom Compton. So not too much has changed. So
No,
somebody give me something.
that's awesome. And Jonathan, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. I'm gonna let Jackie speak to you here, but I was gonna say, and this is perfect. I mean, in the second hour, we're gonna really talk about a call to action, and I think this is one of those key things that you'll hear some of the topics we'll touch on. And I think if you can just wait to that second hour and let us bring some of this forth, I would really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, hold on. I think I'm gonna let Jackie say some things to you really quick.
I just wanted to say thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much, Lori. You may or may not remember Patrick, but I just want to say to you, Patrick, I appreciate you so much. You know, I have a great deal of adoration and respect for you. I know going through school and being in the gifted and talented classes, and you know how Lord, you know that whole competition situation that we would go through. Alex, you were always just Jim. Smart dude. I would always look to you for help, particularly in
Right.
biology and chemistry. If it wasn't for you,
Right.
Pat, I don't know how I
Right.
made it through those two.
I don't know how I made it through either, but I'll tell you right now, it was fun. It was fun. It was definitely fun. High school was, I mean, it was just that's a really great time. And like I said, my heart has never left, you know, my roots. And I chose purposefully to live in an area in Sacramento that resembles. My son went to a school that Sacramento Charter High School that was so similar to our high school. And they just didn't understand the stuff that, you know, it was just repetition. It was just a different name to the you know, the new slang. But I would just laugh and said, hey, that's old, you know, everything is full circle. And just like I said, you know, when we go back to talking about the cycle that I just see, because, you know, I hit, like I said, I'm a little bit over 21. So I've seen this cycle. Matter of fact, my aunt, who's 79, she still lives in the farms in Compton. Mid 70s, she had a friend who was shot in the back escorting some kids at Hollywood Bowl. And someone asked me recently, what was my first recollection of police brutality? And at about 7 years old, excuse me, that was my first recollection. And he was an honor student, and he was shot at the Hollywood Bowl. And this is just really like we have to do something differently going forward. And I'm like I said, Eric, I'm long-winded. I'm gonna let the second half come in. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Fisher.
Hey, Jerome, you put some really good information in the chat. Why don't you, about reparations? Could you share that for all of our listeners?
Sure. So 2 days ago, a proposal to establish a task force to study, prepare recommendations for how to give reparations to African Americans passed the California Assembly on Thursday, and advanced with a 56-5 vote. So what happens is that right now, the young people are doing all they know how, and so the young people, college age students and below, they have the nation's attention because people get scared when property is appeared to be threatened. Folks our age. But what we must do is follow the lead of the youth and apply pressure now to policy and politics. So this now has been approved as far as a preliminary, study. Now we have to apply pressure. So this is where we have to get off our butts now and make this go from a bill that's potentially passed to a bill that will get passed. And so that means that we have to take all of our big churches, all of our fraternity and sorority organizations, and we got to work. And we have to make sure that we can't be looking around and saying who's going to do it. We're going to have to do it. And we're going to have to lobby our white brothers and sisters and non-Black people of color to say, hey, we need you on this. And it's the same, it's how politics are done all the time. So I think this is a perfect time because there's never been more corporate pressure to make moves and serve the needs of Black people than in my lifetime than I've seen right now. I saw Starbucks get on their knees and say, we're sorry 5 times about not supporting Black Lives Matter. So this is a historic time, but as we know, it's a window of opportunity. And if we let the ball drop, we cannot blame anyone but ourselves. So as you said, Mr. Fisher, we have to make sure we have a plan. And the plan has to work for Black folks, and the plan has to incorporate non-Black folks. And we have to move forward to make sure that we can create systemic changes. And it's going to start with our voting ballot, and then it's also going to start in our boards of education, our school board meetings.
Well, and I think
Jerome, you have a question from a listener. The listener Chris says, I'm for reparations, and the whites have been riding on our back since the beginning. But for those who have done genealogy, what if they say, I'm 3% Black, I deserve reparations too?
In my opinion, if it's okay, I think it's as long as you identify as Black, you know, you can just go off your census. You know, we have the census. If you identify as Black on any of your census, you're Black, and you know that's fine with me. I mean, there many of us are multiracial. Very few of us can be traced 100% with no genealogy mixed. The 3%, you know, I wouldn't want to get into that because that will sidetrack us on reparations. And so for me, I think that America was built on commerce, and it was free commerce, and it was free labor and torture that Black people went through. So I'm going to play the American game. Let's talk business. So we can get the details, you know, ironed out later. I want to talk business. I want the reparations. And then the group of people that are 3%, 10%, 20%, we can have that discussion, but we shouldn't let anything slow us down. We got to get the deal done, and then we can talk details later on the specifics of subgroups that are in question.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Jerome, you hit on something, and I think, you know, this is kind of what we talked about in our call. We'll talk about more in our call to action. But it's interesting, you said it was 56 to 5. And this is where, you know, we as older brothers and sisters have to make sure that we let our younger brothers and sisters know, like you said, white and Black, that you find out who that 5 is and you vote against that 5. Because again, they clearly don't have our best interest at heart, right? And I guarantee you they're probably all 5 GOP. And at the end of the day, even if they're Democrat, you need to see who they are so you can understand what they're voting on and make that difference and that change. This is where we start talking about we need our younger brothers and sisters getting into offices and being part of that change. Exactly. Instead of these people just staying there forever. And you know what, working on the benefit of lobbyists and everybody else that pay them money to have their best interests at heart. I'm sorry, Zach, you were saying.
No, I said exactly, but to that point, we have to be aware of who those 5 are. Mm-hmm. You got to be paying attention, and you got to hold them accountable. And you know, so often we only start paying attention to the general election, you know, the presidential election versus
the midterms and everything else.
Yeah, in the trenches, that's where things are done.
Yep. There are, you know, and we talked about this in some other shows. You know, it starts at the local level. Yeah. You know, those same folks that we put in there that start off as council members, that go on to be House representatives and go on to be senators and then go on to be U.S. senators and House representatives. It's them. You know,
you guys are familiar with Fontana. Amazing. It's just recently that you all got a Black individual. I mean, and he happens to be one, you know, my frat brother. He's the president of the school board there in Fontana. Made history becoming that. So that we have to pay attention at the local level.
No, most definitely. And I think there's one last thing, Jackie, and I'm gonna let you chime in here too. It was interesting when Jonathan Patrick was speaking. He touched on something. He talked about like the top 10%. And I just want to throw this out to everybody. And I was watching the Dave Chappelle commentary the other day.
That's what I wanted to say.
You know, it was interesting because he had a really, really good point. And I think this is kind of what like Jerome is saying as well. And Dave had a really good point. He doesn't need to say anything because he's that top 1%. Most people will see him speak, and then you know what? They say, oh, he spoke, and they'll go away. Mm-hmm. It's got to be that other 90%, which is what's happening today. Yes. It's that 90% that is actually getting up and saying enough is enough, and that's what's making the change. And he had a very valid point. I don't have to say anything. I'll speak through them, and when it's time for me to speak and add my voice, I'll add my voice. But right now, I don't want to detract from those that are doing the grassroots efforts of bringing around change. I don't want to be in sidetracking that. And I think that's a very valid point. And I think, you know, like Patrick was saying, I think we'll talk more about this as we get to the second hour, but this is something for, you know, the panelists, I want them to think about, as we start talking about that second hour, talking about what are we going to do as a call to action. But this is kind of what Dave was saying. I'm not going to be that voice. I'm going to let the 99% of others speak and let them be the voice of change.
Mm.
Go ahead, Jackie, you were saying.
Eric, I did want to say to you that we've got some commentary from Facebook, and actually, thank you so much for bringing up that piece regarding Dave Chappelle to Don Lemon, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Like Dave Chappelle said, I don't really have to do it. The people are doing it for themselves. You know what I'm saying? But we have from Kiba, Kiba keeping it real Bonner, Eric was saying that when we come talking about reparations, everyone, she was saying that Indians get, you know, some type of financial support. Native Americans, why can't we get something? You know, and again, just piggybacking on what you're saying for your call to action moments, Eric, that what do we do? What can a ground person like Kiba, like me, you know, what can we do to make sure that this momentum continues to go? And then I would also like to let you know, Eric, that Daryl Barnes says that it's time to stop asking white people and politicians to do for us what we can easily do for ourselves. The government is not the answer. So thank you, Eric, for that time.
And I think Jerome touched on it earlier, and I think you're starting to see the corporations that realize where the money is coming from are starting to make those changes. Like he said, like Jerome said, a lot of African Americans drink coffee, a lot of youth drink coffee. What is Starbucks saying? They on their knees saying, I'm sorry. Look at Nike. Nike came out the other day and said, you know what? In our organization, Juneteenth is actually a paid holiday for all our employees. Why do you think Nike said that? Who's the biggest advocate of buying Nike shoes in this country?
Yeah.
I mean, I probably got about 3 or 4 pair in there myself, but you know, this is why it's so important that, you know what, our black dollars matter.
Yeah.
When we do a blackout, we should do a blackout. Pick a company, do a blackout, and we'll show them. They'll understand. They're understanding. The ones that don't want to deal with that are the ones that are doing things about it preemptively versus saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to wait for them to tell me. I'm going to start doing things beforehand. Go ahead, Zach, and Jerome, you want to touch in on that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I think what the gentleman was saying as far as like not focusing, politics is not the answer. I'm not looking at politics as the answer. I'm looking at it as business. So if I do a service for you, I want to be compensated. So I'm not looking for anyone to save Black people. I'm just handling business. I'm looking for my settlement. There was work done. I want to be paid. That's it. This is business, and so we have to stop looking like reparations and us begging. No, this is business. And so any other group of people in society that are not Black would just look at it as business. I don't think any Native Americans are in love with the American government. I don't think any Native Americans are in love with the historical atrocities that was done by the American government. But business-wise, give me my money. And Native Americans, many tribes are taken care of. So that's the business side. I do believe that we do need to do blackouts and use our dollars collectively, but not just so that white people or white businesses are not blessed. We need to bless ourselves.
Right.
So the blackouts have their purpose, but more than a blackout, we need to turn our Black lights on and green light some Black banks, some Black business structures, fund some Black schools. Because a lot of times what happens is we're so focused on, well, we ain't gonna support these people. That's great. We'll get their attention. But in the meantime, we have no equity in the economic cycle. So how we create equity is we have to build. We have to get behind the next person that says, I want to create a private school for children of color, particularly Black students. We got to get behind them. So we have our own problems that we got to face because everyone is down with Kaepernick right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't with Kaepernick because if we were, we wouldn't have watched the NFL. If we were, we wouldn't have been on the field playing. So there are things that we can do that has nothing to do with politics. Yes, we can definitely do making sure that we boycott places, but we got to turn our black lights on. We got to move our funds into places that there right now in Atlanta. There is a black institution called Morris Brown, historically black college. They're in debt. Get them out of debt. So it's so many things that we can do with our dollar. In addition to.
No, you were saying, Jackie?
No, I'm saying that's absolutely correct. I agree with you. I was just in agreement.
No, Zach, were you gonna say something there?
Well, tying into what Jerome said, and then also balancing off what you said with, I didn't see the Dave Chappelle thing, but I say unfortunately, there isn't any silver bullet.
No.
Take all of these things. It's going to take, I understand the comment, we can't wait for white people to do what we can do for ourselves. But we can't do it by ourselves, unfortunately. I mean, I think what made the Floyd thing so just unbelievable is that you had individuals standing up there asking the police, hey, get off this guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, and of people that weren't of color. And they saw this. We need, it didn't happen with one bullet as far as they've been pressing on us more than one way. And so we're going to need them to get off of us, and we're going to need to get relief from multiple ways. So I referenced to Dave Chappelle. I honestly think his voice needs to be heard because he's reaching out. He can reach people that some people, can't. So I'm not sure of exact content of what he was saying, but I think his voice, he does need to talk. It's just like when we got on Jordan because he didn't speak on, the political side.
Past issues, yeah.
Yeah.
He spoke this time.
Right.
Right. He had to speak.
But I think and I think the part that Dave was trying to say is, I don't want to be a detractor. I'm going to be there with you, but I don't want to be the main voice because, again, there's probably strength in numbers versus just my one voice. And, and I agree. I even think even LeBron, I think the idea of him calling to action some of his friends that are able to be influencers to say, you know what, this voting is becoming an issue, and they're trying to make it more of an issue to ensure that 45 gets in office again, right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to put a lot of time and effort to make sure that these folks aren't disenfranchised. If that means getting out information prior to voting, if that means taking them to the poll booths, letting them sit, I was thinking all kinds of things. You know what, you have a mobile home and you let them sit there distant until they can go in and vote. There's got to be a lot of things we can do to ensure that we're not disenfranchised to voice our vote. Because again, it's going to come down to this election. If we want to see additional change, we've got to make sure we make that change with our votes.
For sure.
That means, that absentee ballot comes in the mail, send it back. Send it back. We can vote absentee in California, so send it back.
Yeah. Well, starting with the 2020 census.
Yeah. Yep. That too.
Well, I think this time we're going to have a greater turnout with our president, especially with the stunts that he pulled, having the National Guard fire on American protesters that was peacefully protesting, and to have that photo op to walk down to the church, hold the Bible up, and have the Bible backwards. Then not even referencing to George Floyd, what's going on, until he said George Floyd is looking down, saying how good job I've done with the economy and everything. This man lost his life. Anything you can say. Then his brother goes and his brother goes and listens to the president. He said he couldn't even get a word, he didn't say anything.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people of lighter color is pretty much fed up with the president who they voted into office this time. And I think they're on board for a change with us because it's like, my God, how much more are you going to keep treating people of color this way? Because it's starting to affect a lot of them. We are an enormous race. And, like I said, we're contagious. You know, our style, our talk, our walk, our recipes, we're just contagious. So a lot of people are, you know, they don't want to admit it, but they love us, they like us. Whatever they can do black, they'll do it behind closed doors. If we run a camera, we'd be surprised to see how white people act and think they're black.
Right.
So, you know, the change is coming. You know, like I said earlier, show me. But I think a lot of folks is just fed up with the way things are going because it's starting to affect them now. You know,
Mhm.
it's an embarrassing moment for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the change, Mr. Fisher. I don't know I don't know. I don't know. I was just wanted to see uh, Jerome. I was just going to think back to. I know we did a previous show. We talked about the future and your daughters. You've got two beautiful little girls. And when you think about their future and the voices that we want for them, and you look at the change that people are going for now, how do you see that now? Do you have a more of a energetic outlook, or would that be how has it swayed, if at all?
I'm enthusiastic because I know what I can do. Uh, there's an old saying my grandpa used to share. He used to say there are three men on the couch trying to decide how to clean the house. One man said we should clean up the bedroom first. The other man said we should clean up the living room first. And the third man got up and started cleaning. So my job is to have action. My job is not to be sitting up talking and talking and talking. So my daughters are gonna say their dad had action. My generation, we've had a lot of different things impact my generation. There was a lot of black men that was destroyed from COINTELPRO, a lot of black men destroyed from drugs. So what I want to make sure I do is do my part to have action in the narrative. I think what was very successful is that the drugs and the COINTELPRO and the gangs that we saw that littered the inner city, they took out our leaders. So like in actuality, the gang members were our leaders. They were the action oriented brothers. And so we got to get back to having action. Sometimes we got to take those glasses off and get busy. And so that's what I want my daughters to see. So my optimism is sky high because I'm going to work to do everything I can to mobilize and get people together. And everybody might not look like me. I think that our one of our most strongest allies are going to be white women in this fight, as it has been back to the days with the Underground Railroad. So I'm excited because at the end of all my conversations I have with Eric, it's okay. So we finna do this. We getting ready to do this. And so, and if I find myself in circles with people that are doing a lot of talking, I tend to fade out because I have to see action. We have to. The young people are tired of people talking. They want to see action. They want to see their leaders. They want us to be the leaders and have action. It's up to us now to mobilize and really get busy and start putting our money where our mouth is and get up off the couch and get to work.
No,
I appreciate that, Jerome. Thank you.
and I think that's, one of the things I think when I think about, all of this, and when we start talking, we're going into this second hour, I really want, to make sure Joel and Jerome and Zach, I really want you guys to take an opportunity here to highlight some of the things that you're doing short term, some of the things you guys have planned long term. Everybody has something that they're doing differently here that are touching lives of those that actually can help in this impact. So I want to make sure that folks, have an opportunity to say, wow, I could do that. To your point, Jerome, how do you make this change come around? Because I really want to talk a little bit about what you're doing and some things you have coming up that I think folks should hear about and actually get engaged in. So I want to make sure as we go into the second hour that we take the time to talk about some of those things. I think the one thing I want to take away, and I think the part that's really interesting about all of this is that it's been, from the stats that we've read, from everything that we've heard, it's been happening for so long. And I think really what's happened is social media has brought this around. And you know what? You're on camera every time you walk out your front door. Actually, when you're in your front door, you're on camera. And you know what? It's causing folks to have to be accountable for the way that they treat others. And you don't get that second bite to be better. You know what? We're seeing it now from the start. So I think this is what's been really unique about all of this as we're seeing this unfold. This technology has been, you know, phenomenal. It's catching up and it's starting to expose the challenges and issues that we've had for a very long time. That we've been saying, hey, this is what's happening, and everybody's saying, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. You know, if you notice, a lot of times when a lot of these folks that actually were killed, the folks didn't have a body cam. So what did they do? They took it upon themselves to bring justice because they knew they didn't have a body cam. There was nobody there to tell them that they did otherwise. Like Brianna, you know, that story there, a welfare call to a home that supposedly was a drug deal, and you go in blazing and you kill a young woman, that's uncalled for. And so, you know, as we think about this next hour and this call to action, you know, I really want to hear from everybody that's out there, that they weigh in and provide some perspectives. So when we think about this, you know, call to action, you know, as I said, I believe there's something that can be happening immediately, and there could be things that we do long term, like we've talked about in November. Jerome, I want you to take an opportunity to talk about some things that inspired you to make some changes right away. Let me lead into that and let you go from there. And then Joe, I'll have you chime in because I think you'll find this very interesting.
So I'm currently in a doctoral program at USC, and so what I found is that I was finding myself in a lot of conversations in class amongst my classmates where we're talking about how bad the situation was, and we were and then you know, our professors would be like, "Man, this is terrible. Let's talk about it." And then there would be another conference where we talk about it, and we keep talking about it while I'm seeing all these young people just get busy. And so I saw how our young people got the attention of the nation. These are young people that really has had the nation on edge. And so what I realized was, you know, I kind of took a step back and I began to watch and listen. And I have not seen faith leaders speak out. I have not seen the education community demonstrably speak out. I think right now this generation is not going for the riding of the fence. Is not really going for people that's going to play both sides. They need people that can say what they say and mean what they mean. And so I didn't see it. So you know, I give all the credit to God. I came up with the concept of having something that's called Enough is Enough, with the subtitle With Us. And so I'm calling on Thursday in the Inland Empire in Rancho Cucamonga. I'm calling on all Inland Empire pastors, faith-based faith organizations. You don't have to be Christian. You can be Muslim, Buddhist, all faith leaders. And also I'm calling for all educators, from superintendents to custodians. If you work at a school, I want you there, because it's time for the Black community to see education leaders say, no, we are with you. It's time for the Black community to see demonstratively pastors speak out and say, no. So you can't hide behind religion. You have to walk into religion. And so I believe that whatever the faith, whoever you pray to, was a revolutionary mindset to create change. So Thursday, June 18th, we're having from 8 to 9 a.m. It's going to be a march protest that we're going to lead. I also have already been in contact with the, even though it's our constitutional right to, civic right to assemble, I've already contacted the City Hall of Rancho Cucamonga and the police department to let them know we want their support as well. So we're going to be speaking out for Black Lives Matter, as well as Black Students Matter as well. It's going to be only 1 hour, so it's a great time. If you like myself, you need to get that exercise and steps, come on out. And it's great also if you have little ones to have out and see what history is in the making. So that'll be on the 18th, and then on the 25th in Fontana, the following week on Thursday, we'll have another one. It's already been approved by Fontana City Hall as well as Fontana PD. We'll be right in front of the Jesse Turner Center. Pastors and educators coming together to step out and say, no, we are supporting Black Lives Matter. We are supporting Black students, and it's up to us again to have action, because if we don't, the young people will take over and they'll get the job done, and then we'll be commenting on how they did it. And then all they can do is look at us and say, you guys didn't do anything.
Awesome.
Jerome, would you just one more time tell people how they can get engaged or involved in these two protests for people who are listening on Facebook or will be viewing us on YouTube?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So I have a Facebook page, J.R. Rucker. You can follow. You can just, kind of just see the information there. I'll also send it to you. I was trying to find a way to upload it, but I can also send
Can
it
you
to
give it
whoever.
to me again, Jerome? Because we have Facebook listeners that want it again. I can jot it down and put it in the comments.
Sure. Okay. So
Jerry.
my profile name is J.R. Rucker or Jerome Rucker, and they can just go on my Facebook page and get information. So that'll be this Thursday on the 18th in Rancho Cucamonga. And details of, it'll be on the corner of Foothill and Day Creek, right near the Victoria Garden Shopping Center. And then the following Thursday from 8 to 9, same time, we'll have one right in front of Summit High School on both sides of Summit Avenue, in front of the Jesse Turner Center and the Summit High School. And while we have the legal right to assemble, I did go through City Hall and police departments of both cities to let them know what's happening, and also let them know, hey, we want them present to give their support of the illegal policing of Black and Brown communities, as well as the basic systematic destruction of Black students in public education. So this is a big thing because, silence is complicit. We cannot remain silent. We have to speak up. A lot of us, we have great jobs and we have great connections, and we feel, we don't mind telling people that don't work with us how we feel. But on the work site, that's where it is. So I recently had a 4-hour meeting with my superintendent and brought up a list of issues. And so I think the conversation for us, if you want to say the talented 10th, is for us to make sure that we get out of our comfort zones and make sure we speak out and do the things we need to do.
No, so true. And thanks for that, Jerome. And I think one of the things as I think about this call to action, I will say, folks, if you're out there listening, go to Jerome's Facebook. And again, you guys have friends, they have friends. You know what? Let's get the word out. Even if you don't live in the area, you might know people down in that area. You know what? Let's get the word out that they can participate and show their sign of solidarity and be there with them. So I'll ask that again, Jackie, and if you can post that out to your members, Jackie, that would be awesome.
Sure.
And I think, as I'm sitting about this call to action, I just happened to look up and I'm watching, and this is why I think this short-term action, even in Atlanta, they're protesting again tonight. They've actually gone on to the freeways and they shut down the freeways.
Yay.
Enough is enough. You know what? They're going to continue to get the attention of the right people up and down that chain for change. So again, my heart and prayers are with those folks that nobody gets injured tonight, but you know what? They're taking that short-term opportunity to get that change across.
Changes now. Wow, okay, guys.
Jerome, thanks for sharing that. Zach, I think I want to take this opportunity for Joel to touch in on that a little bit, to talk about some of the things he's seeing out there in the community. And then I'll come over to Zach and let him talk about some of the things he's doing to help out.
Excuse me. Well, on my end over here in our community, we've seen a lot of people go out in protest of what's going on, what's not right. But what I am seeing, to Jerome's point, is a lot of the young folks that's out there that's really hitting the streets and really giving their opinion on what's going on, because they're tired of it. And a lot of young people want change. They see what's going on now and they want the greater for themselves, for their friends. They hear stories about what their parents have told them, what their grandparents have told them. So just on my behalf, getting out, talking to the young folks, telling them that they need to get out and vote. It's your right to vote. You earn it. You go out. If you love something to be changed in a certain way, go vote. Get on social media. Instead of getting on social media and TikTok, get on social media and TikTok and let people know they need to go out and vote. Do something constructive that's going to make you be better about yourself. Stop around here doing things that's going to get you caught up and do things that's not going to be productive. We've seen that when people are out here rioting while people are out here trying to make a change. You're always going to have that certain percent that's going to do something wrong. So just trying to get in the mindset of some of these people that won't change their mind. The youth and letting them know that, hey, you know what you're doing is wrong. You know, you're gonna go ahead now and get yourself caught up in something that's gonna affect you where you can't get a job, you can't go to school, you're not gonna be able to be a productive citizen. Then you can look back and say, wow, well, they're not giving me a fair shot. Well, stop making an excuse. You know, be the change. You know, do something that's gonna be the greater beneficial for everybody that you're doing.
I think the one thing that was touched on, and I think Brother Patrick, when he was on earlier, he talked about the whole systemic issue that we have, and I think this goes back into what Jackie has talked about on some prior shows, where you talk about this. This is just happened to be the perfect storm, right? What we found out systemically, that the healthcare system has failed African Americans so terribly. The healthcare system has continued to fail us in the behavioral side. So when you had this COVID that had us locked up, you messed around and now you had this killing of George Floyd that just happened to be video. It just really, it shined a light on all of that. And I think, this goes back to Jerome, that's the whole systemic process from how we're pretty much raised, for those that are in the welfare systems, to those that are in the county systems, to those that are actually living in projects. You know what? It shined a light on all of that, and I think we're at this stage now where this action is really needed. So I'm going to continue to say, call to action, people on the line, people that are listening in. You know what? Take up your arms and bring some change. Zach, I'm going to go ahead and let you just chime in here. And Jackie, before we chime in to Zach, Jackie, do you want to add something there on that?
No, I'm good. We've got some Facebook listeners, followers. I hate Clint and Terry Lampkin. She wanted to reach out to you, Jerome. I gave her information to be able to locate you on Facebook to get the addresses for the upcoming events outside of Summit High School, as well as near Victoria Garden. So I just wanted to, put that out there to the panel. But yeah, let's keep it moving, Eric. I'm with you.
All right, Brother Zach, let's talk about what you're doing. I think, your fraternity, you guys are doing some phenomenal things. I know you're doing it with a host of other brothers, and I know you'll never take all the credit, because you never take any credit for anything. But why don't you share what you guys are doing?
Well, let me say hello and greetings to the Divine Nine, my fellow Greek brothers and sisters, and particularly, these organizations were formed, back in the days where, the gym, all of those, the racial tensions and segregation and all of those kinds of things, that's one of the purposes that these organizations were formed, and particularly Kappa Alpha Psi being formed on a predominantly white institution at Indiana University. These brothers went through some terrible things, as we are continuing to go through these terrible things. But what we're doing, I'm the president in Riverside. We, in the background there, and particularly Patrick, I want you to realize that it's Kappa Alpha Psi. We okay with the alphas. The young men that you see in my background video are our Kappa Leaguers, and we have approximately 40 young men. So what we've done in the last 5 years is we've grown this, going from middle school to high school students, getting them prepared. Okay, we understand that the playing field is not level. So what we have to do is we have to prepare them to deal with this. If you remember back in school where the grading on the curve, so we prepare them so that they're at the top of the curve. So the curve is based upon them, and therefore you're prepared. It's going to be unfair, but I think most of us heard this when we were growing up. You got to be twice as good. You got to be twice as smart in order to get just recognized like, your white counterpart. And so we prepare them, we mentor them, we go through tutoring sessions with them, and we take them to the universities so that they understand where their destination is. Because, I admire Brother Jerome as far as being an educator, but these brothers and sisters need help educating them, because you can't do it all in the few hours that they have them in school. And try and instill some skill, you know, some study habits with them. And after all of that, we provide them with scholarships so that they can go to these four-year institutions. And if four-year institution isn't their destination, there's the 2-year, the community colleges, providing them with funding assistance for that. And we're not even going, if for those that education or higher education just doesn't seem to be the thing, there's the armed forces. So we've got brothers that are in, you know, that are admirals in the Navy and generals in the Army that come out and talk to these brothers, and they see success, and then they can see themselves successful.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I mean, that's one of the, am I frozen?
Little
Just
patches.
a little bit there.
Frozen a little bit. We'll get it.
No, he'll be back. I think.
Okay. Oh man.
While he's fixing those technical issues, and we'll just wait for him to come back. But I think he's touched on some things that, you know, one of the call to actions I think short term for us is we should be speaking to our kids. And I think I've said this on your show before, Jackie. Oh, there we go. He's back. He's back. Okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
Zach.
Sorry about, I'm not sure what happened with that, but yeah, those are just a few of the things. And again, it's no silver bullet. It's getting them prepared. You know, like one caller said, you know, we can't expect the white person or those of not colored to do it all for us. When you think about it in the corporate America, when we have a representative in the boardroom, we have to give them something in order to speak on our behalf. You know, I can't hire you if you don't have the education and you don't have the skill sets. So what does that mean? We go ahead and we prepare our young men to have the skill sets so that when we are in the room, I can promote them. I can speak on their behalf. I can say, no, we're not going to terminate this. We're not going to lay this person off because they've got a better package than, you know, this other individual. But they have to have the tool sets.
No, so true. And I think this is, you know, a good lead into, I want to, you know, and I know Jackie and Lori didn't think I was going to bring this up, but I really want them to touch on this too. You know, this is when I think about education, I think, you know, we have a duty to our children and to other children to let them know there's other options and alternatives out there. You know, it's not always about the big institutions. There's a lot of HBCUs that have money to give away. There's a lot of foundations out there that have money to give these kids scholarships, even if they're just going to junior college, to your point, Zach, to be able to start educating themselves to be prepared. You know, I think, you know, Jackie and Lori has actually gone out and they've actually started a foundation in their mother's name. I'm going to let you guys plug that a little bit because I think this is important to say, these are the small things that we can do and it don't take much.
Right.
It just takes you to say, I want to make a difference. So Jackie and Lori, I'll let you guys touch on the foundation a little bit. I know you guys didn't expect for me to bring that up, but I think these are some of the short-term things that it's almost a challenge. I want everybody that's listening and hearing this to say, you know what, I can do what they've done and I can help 1, 2, 3. And it doesn't take a lot. So why don't you guys talk about that a little bit?
You want to take it, Sissy?
I will. I was muted there, guys, so I apologize for that. Those of you who follow us and listen to the POJ show regularly, you know what a close-knit family Jackie and I and my mom were. And we lost our mom a couple years ago in August, and it was a really devastating time for us. Our mom worked as an educator for Compton Unified School District for over 40 years, and it was essentially her life. So she pushed education. It was one of the founding building blocks for our home. My father, before he passed away, was also very committed to an educational journey and just really living in a space of saying each one needs to teach one, right? And we don't get to the finish line until we reach back and we all make it to the finish line. But having the foresight to realize everybody isn't going to run the race at the same pace. So the door was always open to meet people where they are to help usher them along. And so Jackie and I wanted to continue that legacy, to continue that spirit. And so when she passed away, we developed a scholarship fund where we were able to provide opportunity for people at Centennial High School in Compton, where she worked for the majority part of her career, to further their education. And it didn't have to be a four-year university. It didn't have to be a college. It could be a vocational program. But we asked for students just to write an essay to talk about what education meant to them and how would this scholarship make a difference or an impact. And we were so very excited that we were able to award 5 scholarships to students that were entering either community college or four-year university, and keep that kind of alive. It was a little disappointing with the whole influx of COVID and how it kind of happened in March and the schools closing, that we did not get a chance to extend the scholarship this year. But we're definitely hoping to be able to get that back up and to keep that going, and to maybe even, as our donations and contributions grow, we can even spread that beyond just Centennial High School, but maybe open it up to all of the high schools in the city of Compton. So that would mean including Compton High, our alma mater, as well as Dominguez High School. So.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Eric.
No, thank you. And again, and I think these are, you know, again, and I'm sure everybody out there listening has a lot of great ideas and a lot of things they're thinking about. You know, I'm going to say, hey, you know what, you can always post them out there to Jackie's Facebook or send them to her, however you communicate. But there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. I think so many people say, well, what can I do? What can I do? There's so many different things that you can do. I think, you know, when, you know, me and Jerome talked about it, and the next day, you know, I'm seeing he's calling the pastor, he's doing, and I'm like, wow, you know what? I mean, he just took that initiative upon himself just by making a few phone calls. He sat down and said, hey, I need to have a discussion with the pastor to say, what are you going to do? You know, I thought that was phenomenal, just to say he moved the needle just because he said, I got to make a difference. And so when I think about all these things, I see that we can all do some of these things. I look at Brother Zach as what he's doing. I think about, you know, my brother who's probably listening, you know, working with the youth, you know, coaching basketball, you know, is trying to tell them, hey, you have a skill that can get you into college and do some things. You know, we've got to continue to usher those things as well. I think as I'm starting to think about it, I see a bigger opportunity also to start taking these kids and teaching them. You know, I think I think our generation, you know, we've always said we want to do, our parents say we want you to do better than I did.
Right.
And I think we live in that mantra that says, you know what, we kind of forget the past and those past legacies that have haunted us for a while. You know what, we've got to bring those up. We've got to teach our kids about the past so that they don't repeat themselves, especially in this light when this opportunity has given us the platform to be able to say, we want something different than what we've had. So we've got to make sure those ones that are coming up now that are in elementary and junior high, that they understand the George Floyds, the Breonna Taylors, those folks, they died for them to make sure that their lives are better and that they have the opportunity to be successful and be seen. What's that old that terminology? I see you. They need to be seen.
Right. Yeah.
They need to be seen for who they are and what they stand for. And we have got to stop as a society. We came up with that old, you know, what we used to do when they see the other race walking across the street, we put our head down and not look up. Those days are over. You got to meet me where I meet you. You got to look at me in the eye, just like you're going to look me in the eye.
You know, guys, I have a question
That's
for
what I
the
wanted to share.
panel. On the Poetry Justice Show, we talk a lot about community, a lot about community building, and about what impact we as individuals can have on our community. And the four of you have definitely taken initiative and sparked some particular change, but that might be a little bit intimidating for some individuals are listening. So in your opinion, could you just give some small advice that you would encourage each individual to consider doing so they could make a difference in their community? Sometimes we think our difference has to be monumental, but it could be very small and very incremental. How do you feel about that?
You know, and I'm gonna let Jerome and them weigh in here too, but I think, you know, I think one of the smallest things that I can remember, and I've seen actually, from my mom and from, you know, Jackie and Lori's mom as well, you know, something as small as the PTA, you know,
Yeah.
ensuring that you have a voice, because most of the time those PTA meetings are attended by everybody but us.
Mm.
And they're making decisions on behalf of us. You know what I realize now is when we had to go to those meetings and sit out there in the car and wait for her to get finished, she was making sure that, you know what, she was speaking on at least on her kids' behalf.
Right.
You know what, but she was representing all the kids that look
them.
like, exactly. So it's little things like that. It's just, you know, it's also your church leaders. I think, you know, Jerome, and I'll let him chime in here, that's what he did. He says, hey, you know what, this is my community. I'm gonna hold you accountable because you got 5,000 plus members. Now they all don't look like me, but what are you going to do to ensure that I feel inclusive? Go ahead,
Right.
Jerome. I know you was about to chime in there.
All right. Sorry about the background. I have a little visitor.
That's
I would
all
say
right.
I would kind of continue on with what you're saying, Eric. Attend one school board meeting. Make it your goal each calendar year to attend one local school board meeting and ask one question. That's it. That's one thing you can do. Also, it's important that you make sure you have voting parties or ballot parties. That's something that me and my wife are going to start this year, either online due to COVID-19 or without. We have to make sure that we make that cool. The wine industry did a great job of making drinking wine seem cool. As you see behind me, I have a wine barrel with no wine in it, but we think it's cool. So we do things that we think are cool. So we have to make being informed of the latest ordinances, we have to make that cool again. So it's important for us to have voting parties, ballot parties, so we can get knowledgeable. And those are two things you can do that are not super extreme.
That's a great idea. Could you go and elaborate a little bit on the voting parties a little bit in that concept, please, Jerome?
So when you have your, you know, and your group of friends, or you get them together and you say, hey, we're gonna kick it tonight, and we're gonna talk about the different candidates. You look up one, I'm gonna look up one. I'm gonna see what their name says when I Google them. Find out what they're known for. Find out what their background is, and find out who they're aligned with. Also, really look up and see what these different ordinances and these different things are trying to be passed. What do they really mean? Because when you get in that voting booth, you're pressed for time. Many of us have been in line. We come from work. We don't have the time, so we have to make sure we do what we can. And then when we have those voting parties, then we can spread the word and be like, hey, girl, we just did this tonight. This is who we voting for. Who are you voting for? So you're gonna be a leader in your own community. You can share those things with your friend circles, your sorority, your fraternity, and you can really get the word out. So those are easy things you can do to let people know about what's going on, because many people are just inundated with their job, their families, and they just haven't learned to have time. It's not culturally, it's not in our culture in general to be talking about politics, and that's what we have to make cool again.
Well, and I think to add on to that, I think, you know, Jerome hit on something, and I think this goes back to looking at policy, right? A lot of those legislations that are written and a lot of those things that we're voting on, they're not always written intended for us to make sure we truly understand what's being put out there. You know, if you vote yes on something you believe that's saying, darn it, I don't want it, it's actually the opposite. It means no, you got to vote no on it, or no versus yes. So again, I think that's a really good avenue to make that change, is by, you know, taking the time out, understanding what you're voting on, and being able to talk about it. Because to Jerome's point, so many times you get in that booth, you're being rushed, long day, you're sweating, you're in there and it's hot, it's cramped, a lot of noise, you really can't think about it. You know, you've looked at your ballot and you just checked and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I want these 4 folks, and everything else I'm not going to worry about. Well, Some of those things you probably need to worry about, because it could be about rezoning your district. It could be saying your kids are going to go to another school. It could be saying, hey, you know what, you're going to pay more in property taxes than those in Beverly Hills. So I think, you know, again, this is an opportunity for some of the little things that I think all of us can do just by reading and getting information and sharing that information.
Right.
Zach,
Thank you for that, Eric.
Sure. I think those are also some excellent ideas. I would say I would repeat, fill out the 2020 census. Make sure after you've had your voting party that you provide transportation to those that may not be able to get there to the voting place if they haven't done an absentee ballot. Join the NAACP, your local NAACP, because they're a established and functioning organization that for change. And because there's that love that I have for educating and working with our youth, you know, sign up to be a mentor, you know, from being a mentor to offering some tutorial services. I mean, we can't, you know, we got students that can't necessarily afford some of the tutoring companies, but, you know, you don't have to be a straight A student to be able to impart some knowledge into some of our young, you know, younger age, young students. Your experiences can be an education, and what you learn, what you may not have done, that you should have done, sharing that and imparting that into a young mind can be very beneficial.
So true.
Thank you.
Joe?
And also, you know, for a lot of us, you know, a lot of sororities and fraternities, you know, tapping into a lot of the boys and girls clubs around here to offer some type of mentor service, or see a man or woman of color and say, hey, you know what, I would like to be like that person later on. And, you know, I want to join a sorority or join a fraternity or something. And tapping in with your local churches. You know, back in the day when we was all kids, you know, we was going on youth trips with the churches, going to Magic Mountain, Disneyland, and stuff like that. I think we don't see a lot of that going on no more. And that kept us busy. That kept us in contact with the church. That kept us around good company, kept us in contact with good mentors, and allowed us to be in church a little bit more and have a positive aspect and a positive vision on what's going on, and, you know, help make you a better product of life. And, you know, you could pass that on to somebody else. You know, Saturdays, you know, be down at the church opened up, you used to play basketball, you know, be in the gym, playing music, whatever. So get back to the old school roots of how we used to be when we were growing up as kids.
Right.
Thank you, Joe.
You guys, we have some questions from our Zoom room. We have Big Tap, friend of the POJ show, calling in from New York. He has a question for the panel. I'm going to bring him in. Tap, are you there? You're live.
Yeah. Actually, I just wanted you to ask them, but yeah, these guys are good, man. These guys are very informative. They're very a little intimidating too. These guys are smart, man. You got a nice panel here today, all you guys, man. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank
You guys
Thank you.
are very interesting. But I was just asking. I was hoping you guys, a couple of you, I was hoping saw the Dave Chappelle special. Did you see that special 846? And what did you think of that?
Yeah, and thank you for calling, Big Tap. Yeah, we did, and we touched on it earlier, but I think to your point, you know, it's worth seeing. I think it was.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, Eric. Did you just say? I'm sorry, I must have walked away because.
No, that's okay. No.
Yeah,
you got a question? We're gonna touch on it again, brother. No question gets unanswered on the POJ show.
Yay.
You know, when you think about what it was, you know, just a short narrative on it, really what he was doing, he was acknowledging the fact that, hey, all these folks have died at the hands of officers, and enough is enough. But he also, what he commented on was he was getting a lot of flack from a CNN journalist who said, hey, you know what? You know, as an African American, I need these folks to call to action to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And one of the things he touched on is that he's not going to do that just yet. Not because he doesn't want to, but he says because he doesn't want to detract from the voices that are actually out there doing the grassroots efforts. Those folks that are out there tonight that are actually picketing and protesting on behalf of the brother Rashard Brooks that lost his life yesterday at a Wendy's in a parking lot. He doesn't want to detract from that. He wants those voices to be heard. He says, I will join the fight, but I want that 99% of those folks that are actually leading this effort to be the ones that you hear their voice, because those are the ones that have got to bring around change. He's going to support the change, and he's there with them with this fight, but he doesn't want to be a distraction. And I think it was well put. And I think, you know, you're seeing that even with a lot of other people that are saying, hey, you know, like LeBron James, he's putting his voice in another piece of the fight, not so much on the fight on defunding the police and doing those things. He's saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that our voters know how to vote, like Jerome said. Jerome's taking it a step further, which is saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to take 20 of my friends and have a vote party.
Right.
Ron said, hey, I'm going to call on, you know, my, you know, top 10 friends that I have that are social influencers as well as big names to say, let's make sure that our African Americans are disenfranchised in voting. So again, I think when you look at that 846, he touched on a lot of the folks that have lost their lives that really weren't really talked about. I think you heard about it in the media and they kind of came and went. George Floyd actually took the opportunity to, that moment took his life and was able to be expounded upon, and now everybody's seen it. But there's so many other people that we didn't see, but he didn't want to let them go. You know?
Yeah. One of you brothers in the panel earlier, I agreed with 100% when you said, like before we used to protest and we used to do it a little differently. But the youth nowadays, they don't have no patience. They want it done now.
Mm-hmm.
It was either you or Jerome or one of them, and I agree with you 100%, man, because that's what it was all about. Everybody saw it, but the way they are now, I don't know if the social media changed them this way. I don't know. You know, you got to wonder how they got this way, or you think about how they got this way. But
hey, well, you know what?
The way they pursue stuff, totally different than we did, man, 20 and 25 years ago or 30 years ago.
Well, you know, they have the opportunity. They can mobilize quickly with technology. They have a long following between a social media account on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, it's totally changed from what we know. But I think when I look at the panel here, we got a very diverse panel. I mean, Brother Zach came from Miami. You know, they had rioting and race issues down there. Brother Jerome was born and raised and grew up in Arkansas, where you clearly know they had issues. And then you have Brother Joe, who came from Inglewood and Los Angeles, seen a lot of rioting, a lot of protesting. In his days, I grew up in Long Beach and seen a lot. And my mother grew up in Long Beach during the Watch riot. So again, we've seen a lot, we've dealt with a lot. And I think Big Tab, you said you're from New York, so you're living it right now today. Not to say you guys didn't have it back then, but again, I think now our youth are seeing it and dealing with it, and they're saying we're tired. I think, I'm sorry, Tab, I'm gonna cut you there because we wanna make sure we try to get to everybody's questions here, but I think you said you had another question?
No, that's it. You answered me fully. Thanks, Eric.
Hey, thank you, brother, appreciate you.
Guys, very good, man. You've been very informative.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey guys, you have a caller that's calling in for to talk to the panel. Go ahead,
We got a caller, guys.
Hey, radio is the best. Kevin Nash, Lori G, how y'all doing?
Oh, it's Kevin.
Hey, is that Roddy Rod?
Hey, Compton, Watch, Carson, Sam Peter, the cleaners, true value, all that. Like that, but I like what the guy was saying about the all they fight was points all down the streets in Mississippi and in California, and we have a church scholarship, and quite natural. I always say it like that, but I won the church scholarship, and they took you down to the Prince Louis and gave you like $1,200. All the pieces on all this.
Cut. Yeah. We can't really
Okay.
hear Reggie.
Okay, I don't know why that is. All right,
That-
Rob, we got some technical difficulties, but we appreciate you calling in. Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Rod.
Rod. I wish I
Can you
could hear
rephrase,
you.
maybe rephrase this question?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rod just called in. You know, he's a longtime listener, very good friend of our show. And he just said that, you know, he appreciated and agreed with what you said. He spent a lot of time in his church, and his church established a scholarship of which he was the winner. So he believes that community starts and can be built around the strong foundations of the church and the community.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So thank you again, Rod, for calling. I do apologize for those technical difficulties. We have another question from our Zoom room, and this comes from Chris. She says, how can I get a 30 to 40-year-old young man who didn't have a mentor or grow up with a man figure in the home to even think about how to come about change? Because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
I'm going to say just give him Joe's number and let Joe talk to him now.
Eric is so
But
bad.
no, I'm going to let Joe take that one there.
Okay.
You know, it's a hard task. I mean, it's no other way to say it. But you know, you surround young men with positive people, or you put positive people around their young man. Just like negative people do, you put positive people around and start changing the mindset. When a person grows up like that and that's all they hear or all they see is something negative, then that's what they're going to think. Your mind will adapt to something new within a 2-week time frame. And you keep putting that person around somebody positive, you keep giving them positive influences, you have them try to read, you try to just give them a rush of good information on YouTube, picking up books. You could turn on TV and see all kinds of stuff. Like you say, you got Brother Zach here with his fraternity. He can go seek advice from a fraternity or something like that, where they can give him a good outlook on life and let him know that there's a lot more out there on a positive aspect than there is with a negative aspect. You know, change the circle that you're around. You know, you want to be around like-minded individuals that want the same thing for growth and for the betterment of life and for your family. So, you know, change starts within. You know, you have to want to change yourself before you make a difference.
You know, and I
have
think,
a question
oh.
from Facebook panelists, and I wanted to maybe, if Jerome, if you want to take this one, Terry Lampkin would like to know, she has a question about the electoral votes, and she says, I was misinformed that it's their votes that count. So I was just thinking if you wanted to give us a little overview of the electoral vote, Jerome?
The electoral
Or no?
college.
Yes, the electoral college vote. Or
Okay,
Eric.
so the historical impact was that was pretty much the short version is it was put in place to eliminate slaves having the ability to impact who is the president. So there were slaves in the United States for 400 years. They knew that in time, Black people were eventually going to be citizens and get the right to vote. So what the Electoral College really does is it allows all states where they knew Black people weren't going to Utah. So you have all states that have the ability to have two votes. And so regardless of how many people are there. And so that way it kind of balanced the region of not just Black people, but they knew they were going to have Native Americans. And so right now, basically there will never be an opportunity to have the true influence of minorities, people of color, and Black people in electoral voting because it's set. I mean, we're just not in Wyoming. You get what I'm saying? So that's the short version of a long thing that it was just another thing policy that needs to be changed.
But I want But I want that person to make sure they understand your ancestors before you walked 50 miles to go vote, was tortured to vote. So you know what? You know, you always hear people say, "Oh, I'm not going to go to the vote because this my vote's not going to make a difference." But you know what? That's your vote. That's your vote that your family made sure that you had the opportunity to have the right to do. So it's important that you go out and you vote. I mean, and I think this is the one thing I never really understood that when I was younger, because, my grandfather said, when you turn 18, you make sure you go register to vote. And because you're 18, you got to register for the draft. Right. So I'm like, why? Why? He says, just make sure you do that. But now it makes sense, because this is the why. We don't need another 45 in that office again to begin with. We need to make sure that some of our local leaders that we have that have been there forever, that have actually been, suppressing us as well, don't need to be in office anymore. So it's really up to you to make that change. So take your vote, that one vote that you have for you, and make it count the right way. Zach, I look like you were going to say something there, Zach.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Jerome, you put some really helpful information in the chat that talks about the 4 different types of mentors. And I think that would be really good for our Facebook listeners to hear. And it would also follow up on Chris's question about how do you get some of our young people who aren't 18, 19, they are 35, 40, who still need mentors. So could you share with us those 4 different types, please?
Okay, so first, to address the question, you don't get 30 to 45-year-old young men to do anything. They have to want to. 30 to 40, not trying to be funny, but 30 to 40-year-old, they have to want to. You're not going to be able to get them to. That's what I want to say first. Secondly, though, we've done a disservice to young Black males by parading a series of men in front of them who are supposed to mentor them, who are inconsistently in their lives. My mother, God rest her soul, wanted what was best for me. I had the world's greatest big brother, but then we moved away. And so what happened is I had a parade of Black men get in front of me throughout my life, and it was not going to be sustainable. So I think what we have to do is make sure that we open it up. So currently right now, I'm 44 years old, and through my professional life, many, dare I say, most of my mentors, sponsors, have been white people. So we have to understand that you want to create what's best for your child. And if you have a Black child, some of the situational mentors may not be Black. Some of them will be Black. But we have to understand that what you want to do is have consistency with the young person, because what's going to happen is there's going to be an emotional connection that's going to be filling other parts, and then there's going to be actually informational connection. And so sometimes young people, including myself, we get those confused because we're not really keen enough to understand what's really happening. So I want to say that whoever you get in front of your young person, or adult for that matter, make sure they have the consistency to stay in front of them. And there's different types of mentors. You can have a peer mentor, you can have a situational mentor, someone who can just kind of help you with specific things. You can have a mentor that is there for you from day one, and then you can have a sponsor, someone who can kind of open doors for you. And so I think it's important. Stacey Abrams, who may end up being our vice president candidate for the Democratic Party, she wrote a great book recently, and it talked about the different type of mentors that we need to let people know about. We can't just think everybody, if they say, oh, get a mentor, there's not, don't pick one person that's going to do everything, because you're going to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. So you have to have the right types of mentors and sponsors that will help you. And oftentimes they may be people outside of the Black race. Some of them will be, but I would just say consistency. And what has hurt us the most is that the Black male has, a lot of our Black males have left the church based on the things that they have seen. So we did see that mentorship years ago with the deacon and the brothers from the church. Now we're losing a lot of Black males in the church, and so that's a big problem that we're having in our community. We got to fix.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Jerome. And I think one of the things, and I'm gonna let Zach touch on this as well, because I think some of the things that he's doing, it really resonates with that, because he's he's got a group of brothers that are in that, the older brothers that actually are in a position to be able to mentor a lot of the mid-level brothers, I'll call them, 30 years old to 40 years old. You know, I'm 50, and, you know, we got some other brothers out there that actually can mentor them. But I think one of the things, to your point, I think I learned from my mother, you can't be afraid to leave that church to go find another church that's going to bring you what you need.
Right.
You know, I think so many times we go to that church because, you know what, we've been in that church forever. We're not getting the word, we're not being fed, we're not getting mentoring. You know what? You can't be afraid to leave. So sometimes change is good there as well. So I'll just leave it with that. Zach, you want to add in on the mentorship?
Well, I will add, as far as there is no age limit on mentoring. I'll point that out too. I have mentors at my age, and I'm slightly over 21. I think that was the age. I have mentors that I speak with and all. Our mentors are there to talk on multiple subjects, but we convey to them they're going to get out of it what they put into it. So we can't lose sight of that. It was almost to that, what someone said, you can't, no, one of the questions, you can't, you can lead them, but you can't force them to drink.
Right.
You're absolutely right. But what we try to do is show them the benefits. And we do emphasize putting people in front of them that look like them. Okay, we're a predominantly African-American organization. And we make it a point of going to schools, if not to say anything other than to show them that there are African-Americans in a suit and tie at times, that's just encouraging them in the school. Hey, come on in, you know, high five walking into, the middle school as far as in adopting the school. So it doesn't have to be, sit down and I'm going to spend an hour with you and put this into you and you got to write all this down. You're right. There are different levels, different types of mentors, but what you're really trying to do is to get them to open up to you, and
Right.
so that you can impart something into them and a supplement to their home environment. So that would be my input into this.
Right. And I'd say, even to this very day, I mean, I get mentorship from Jerome, I get mentorship from Joel, I get mentorship from Zach. Each of them brings something different that I need. So, I utilize those resources.
Yeah.
And again, it was because of me reaching out to them, asking them, hey, you know what, do you mind mentoring me? Me and Jerome, we mentor each other all the time. And, I love the fact that we're able to have those discussions, because even if it's not right, he'll tell me, no, that's not how you should be seeing it. You should be probably seeing it this way, and Joel the same way and Zach the same way. So think about
We have another person in the Zoom room, Miss Jackie Fisher, who says organizing the vote is a must. We have to get that message across. There is power in the vote, and Trump knows this. So we must get out and vote.
Yes.
He wanted to make sure I said that.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
And,
well, guys, the time goes so quickly. Jackie, you only have 2 minutes left.
Oh, wow.
Yikesradio.com,
Yikes
everybody.
Radio.
Can you believe it? Eric Fisher.
Thank you, Jackie.
Jerome Rucker. Joel Simmons. Zach Stewart. We did that tonight. Lori G. Yeah. I appreciate everybody. So you know what this means. That means that part 2 is coming. We have to do this again. I am in a loss of words of just respect and adoration for each and every one of you for joining us tonight. The subject matter is paramount. I mean, what we have to do and what we will do every day from this point forward is what's going to make the difference in our lives and the lives of the future of our children and so forth. So I thank you, gentlemen, and for tuning in tonight and being a part of the Poetry of Justice show. Next week, I have the amazing ladies of the chat in the house. And so that's the mirror image of our brotherhood. So we're going to have those ladies with us next week. But I just wanted to take the time to tell Facebook, thank you so much for joining me. I know you hear the ambiguous in my voice. It's just so much information we cover, so much more to do, so much more work, guys. I don't know. All I can say is be safe. If you're going to protest, please wear a mask. There's so many issues that's going on right now. And most importantly, pray. We want to pray without ceasing. I know I always call feel whatever the spirit of the living God is sending you to do, whatever scripture that is, please, I implore you to do so. This is just the only way I know how to get down. So if you are a believer of the Most High God, I implore you to please, let's each one of us make sure we do that. And maybe a call for prayer more than once or twice a day. You know what I'm saying? In addition to all of these other call to action changes that we have to make. So that's just my little 2 cents of it, because I that's just me. But I just wanted to tell everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next week here on the Poetry of Justice show with Jackie Ray Phillips, so yikesradio.com and acceleratedradio.com. So we'll be back. Lori G.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I know it goes so fast. I love you guys so much. I finished up